The store was packed Saturday, 10:15, the kind of crowd where you can't turn a cart without apologizing to someone. I was grabbing a box of pasta when I saw her. My mother-in-law, Helen, standing at the register with a cart so full it was spilling over the sides. She was wearing that beige trench coat I'd seen in every family photo from the past decade, the one with the loose button on the cuff. She looked right at me, waved like she'd just spotted an old friend, then pointed to the belt and said to the cashier, "She's paying. She owes me." The cashier, a girl with a nose ring and a name tag that said Marcy, looked at me over the stack of canned goods. Helen didn't blink. She just stood there, arms crossed, while Marcy started scanning. I pulled out my card, swiped it. The total came up as $347.12. Then I unlocked my phone, found the text Helen had sent me 3 days ago, and held it up so Marcy could read it. "You're just a beggar who married my son for his money. Don't call me again." Marcy's eyes went wide. I smiled. I said, "Could you ask the manager to make an announcement? I'd like to let everyone know I just paid for a stranger's groceries." She left the bags and ran. I know how this sounds. Like a story someone tells at dinner to get a laugh, the kind where you deliver the punchline and everyone clinks their glasses. But I'm not telling it for laughs. I'm telling it because 3 months before that Saturday, I didn't know I was the kind of woman who would do that. I thought I was the kind of woman who just took it. We lived in a split level on Maplewood Drive, the one with the oak tree my husband planted when we first moved in, the one he said would outlast both of us. He was a contractor, ran a small renovation business that did decent work, decent money. I'd left my marketing job 7 years ago when our daughter was born, and after she started school, I never went back. It wasn't a decision, exactly. It was just easier to stay home, keep the house, make the appointments, be the one who remembered birthdays and oil changes, and the name of the plumber who didn't overcharge. I told myself I was holding things down. I told myself that's what you did when you love someone. His name was Michael. And I loved him the way you love a house you've lived in for years. You know every creak, every draft, every place where the paint has started to peel. You don't think about it because you don't have to. You just live there. The first thing I noticed was the coffee. Michael always drank his black, 2 sugars, every morning for 18 years. Then one day he started ordering lattes. Not at home, at the cafe on 3rd Street, the one he'd never gone to before. He'd come back with a paper cup, set it on the counter, drink it while he scrolled through his phone. When I asked him about it, he shrugged. Just trying something new. That should have been a thing. It wasn't a thing. Or maybe it was, and I just didn't want to see it. The second thing was the cologne. Not his usual. Something sharper, with a note of citrus underneath. I noticed it on a Thursday night when he leaned over me to grab the remote. He smelled like a stranger. When I asked, he said, "The guys at the job site got me a gift set." Except Michael had worked with the same 3 guys for 11 years, and they'd never bought him anything but beer and a card on his birthday. I let it go. That's what I did. I let things go because I thought that's what made a marriage work, the letting go. You give people space. You trust them. You don't turn every small shift into an interrogation. The third thing was the phone. He used to leave it anywhere, kitchen counter, bathroom sink, beside the bed. Suddenly it was always in his hand, even when he was just walking from room to room. If he went to the bathroom, the phone went with him. At night, he'd angle the screen away. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and see the glow of his thumb scrolling. I told myself it was work. He'd always had clients who texted at odd hours. That was part of being a contractor, right? People's pipes burst in the middle of the night. People's roofs caved in. But those calls had always been calls, loud, urgent, impossible to ignore. These were just silent pings. And he'd smile at the screen, this small private smile I hadn't seen him make at me in years. I spent a lot of time convincing myself I was paranoid. I am not a paranoid person. I've never been the type to snoop through pockets or check call logs. I didn't even know the passcode to his phone, because I'd never asked, because I'd never needed it. So when he started keeping it locked, I told myself it was a security thing. A contractor has photos of clients' homes, credit card information, things you don't want getting into the wrong hands. That's what I told myself. The first time I saw her was at the hardware store. Michael had asked me to pick up a specific type of grout he needed for a job, and I was standing in the tile aisle, holding the box, reading the label for the third time. A woman came around the corner, laughing at something on her phone, and she had the kind of presence that made you look. Tall, dark hair pulled back in a low ponytail, heels clicking on the concrete floor heels, in a hardware store. She was in her early 30s, maybe 35. She wore a fitted blazer over jeans, like she'd just come from a meeting and decided to stop in. She was holding a can of spray adhesive and a single light bulb. She passed me, and the laugh on her phone, I recognized the laugh. It was a specific laugh, the one Michael did when he was genuinely entertained, not the polite one he used with clients, not the tired one he used with me. It was the laugh I hadn't heard in maybe 2 years. I stood there in the tile aisle, holding the grout, watching her walk away. And I knew. I knew the way you know a glass is about to fall off a table, the way you know a storm is coming before the sky turns dark. I knew, and I didn't do anything. I just paid for the grout and drove home. That night, he was in the kitchen making pasta. The same pasta he'd been making for years, the one with the garlic and the olive oil and the crushed red pepper. I sat at the table and watched him stir the pot, and I thought about how many times I'd watched him do this exact thing. How many nights I'd sat in that same chair, tired from a day of errands and cleaning and being the one who held the family together. How many times I'd felt grateful for the smallness of it, the predictability. Hey, I said. I saw someone at the hardware store today. Yeah, he didn't turn around. Tall, dark hair. Seemed like she knew someone in the area. He kept stirring. Lots of people around here. She was on the phone. Laughing. Okay. I recognized the laugh. He turned then, slowly, the spoon still in his hand. What are you talking about? Nothing, I said. I'm just making conversation. He stared at me for a second too long. Then he turned back to the stove. Your mother called earlier, he said. She wants to know if we're coming for Easter. And I let him change the subject because that was what I did. I let the thing I knew sit in my chest, small and sharp, and I told myself I would deal with it tomorrow, and then tomorrow came and I dealt with nothing. Helen called me the next afternoon. She never called me. She texted, usually, and her texts were always passive-aggressive in that way only mother-in-laws can manage. Don't forget to RSVP for the wedding. I know you're busy. I noticed the porch light is out. You should get Michael to fix that. This time she called, and I answered because I thought something had happened to Michael. Elena, she said, and her voice was all honey and vinegar. I need you to run to the store for me. I'm not feeling well. I should have said no. I had 1,000 things to do. But I said yes, because that was what I did, and Helen knew it. I drove to her apartment on the other side of town, picked up her list, a page of items written in her tight cursive, and went to the grocery store. I used my own money because she said she'd pay me back and she never did. I'd been doing this for years. That was what made the text she sent me 3 days later so unbelievable. So inevitable. I won't lie. I cried when I read it. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the pharmacy, and I cried like a girl, the kind of crying where your face gets hot and your eyes burn and you can't see the steering wheel. You're just a beggar who married my son for his money. I had married Michael when he was making $40,000 a year, and we lived in a studio apartment with a leaking radiator. I had paid for his tools when his business was just getting off the ground. I had stayed home so he could work late, work weekends, work until he made something of himself. I didn't owe her anything, but she'd spent years making me feel like I did. I didn't tell Michael about the text. I thought about it. I rehearsed the conversation in my head 100 times. But every time I opened my mouth, I heard myself say something else. How was work today? Did you remember to call the plumber? I'm going to the store tomorrow. Do you need anything? I was terrified. Not of Helen, not of losing Michael, but of the shape my life had become. I had built it around him, and I had built it carefully, deliberately, the way you build a house you plan to live in forever. And now someone was telling me the foundation was rotten, and I didn't know what to do with that information. The texts started coming. Not from Michael, from Helen. She'd send me a list of groceries and a time to pick them up. She'd send a reminder about a family event I'd already RSVP'd to. She'd send passive-aggressive questions about whether I was still going to that gym or if I'd given up. Then, the one that broke me. I'd shown it to Marcy, the cashier, but I'd also shown it to a lawyer. A woman in her late 40s who ran a small practice out of a strip mall. She'd read it and said, "This is harassment. You could get a restraining order." I didn't want a restraining order. I wanted out. That was the week I started keeping things from Michael. I didn't tell him about the lawyer. I didn't tell him about the text. I just took his phone while he was in the shower and copied the passcode he'd used to unlock it, the one he thought I hadn't seen. I waited until he was asleep, then I opened his messages. She was in there. Her name was Rachel. She worked at a real estate agency, which explained the blazer and the heels. She was the one showing houses to his clients. They'd met 6 months ago at an open house he'd gone to for work. She'd texted him first, something about a question on a property listing. The conversation had started professional. It hadn't stayed that way. I read it all. Every message. Every heart emoji, every "can't wait to see you," every "you're so different from her." Her. Me. I read the way he described me, the way he told Rachel that I was a good mother, but he felt trapped, that I didn't understand him anymore, that I'd let myself go. He'd sent her a photo of the oak tree in our front yard and said, "I planted this the year we got married." Now I don't even know if I want it anymore. I didn't cry that night. I stared at the ceiling and I thought about every small thing I'd let go. The coffee changes. The cologne. The phone. The hardware store. I thought about how much of myself I'd given away, piece by piece, and how I'd called it love. The next morning, I got a text from Helen. A list of 12 items. Pick them up by 3. I typed back, "I can't today. I'm busy." She replied, "You owe me for all the years I supported Michael. Don't forget that." I didn't answer. I drove to the store anyway, but not for her. I went for myself. I wanted to see if I could walk through those doors and not feel like everyone could see through me, like I was made of glass and about to shatter. That was the day she was there. Saturday, 10:15. A cart that looked like she'd bought out the produce section. Beige trench coat. The same loose button. She saw me and waved, and I knew she was going to make a scene before she opened her mouth. She always made scenes in public because she knew I wouldn't fight back. That was my problem, wasn't it? I never fought back. I was the one who smiled and swiped her card and let her walk all over me. She said, "She's paying. She owes me." And the cashier looked at me, and I saw something in Marcy's face, something that recognized a woman being used. Marcy scanned the items anyway, because that was her job, because she didn't know what else to do. And I stood there and I thought about Michael and Helen and all the years I'd convinced myself that this was just how families worked. Then I thought about Rachel and the heart emojis and the way he said I'd let myself go. And I thought about the lawyer and the bank account I'd opened in my own name the day after I read those messages. I swiped my card. The total was $347.12, which was more than I'd spent on a single purchase for myself in the last year. I unlocked my phone, found the text, showed it to Marcy. "You're just a beggar who married my son for his money. Don't call me again." Marcy covered her mouth. Helen saw her do it and her face went through 3 phases: confusion, recognition, and something I hadn't seen on her before. Panicked. I turned to the woman behind me in line. She was middle-aged, wearing a faded cardigan, holding a single bag of cat food. I said, "Excuse me." Then I walked to the customer service desk and I said to the manager, a man named Frank with a badge that said 23 years of service, "I just paid for a stranger's groceries. Would you announce it over the PA? I'd like everyone to know." Frank hesitated. Then he picked up the phone and made the announcement. "Attention customers. A woman at Register 4 has just paid for a stranger's purchases. We appreciate her kindness." It wasn't exactly what I'd asked for, but it was close enough. I walked back toward the register. Helen had left the bags. She had left everything. The store was packed, people looking, people whispering, and she was gone. That was the moment I knew I was done. I drove home without stopping. Michael was there on the couch, watching a game. He looked up when I walked in. "Where's dinner?" he said. I didn't answer. I walked into the kitchen, opened the drawer where we kept the takeout menus, and threw them on the counter. "Order something," I said. "I'm not hungry." He picked up his phone. I watched him scroll through the options, and I noticed the way he held it, the angle, the instinct to turn it away from me. He didn't know I'd seen it all. He didn't know anything. Michael, I said, we need to talk. He didn't look up. About what? About a lot of things. He put the phone down. Finally looked at me. What's going on with you? I sat across from him. I thought about Helen and the cart and the announcement. I thought about Rachel and her blazer and her heels. I thought about 18 years of let things go. I said, your mother called me a beggar. He blinked. What, 3 days ago? She texted me and told me I'm just a beggar who married you for your money. Elena, come on. She doesn't mean that. She means it. She's been meaning it for years. And you've let her. I haven't let anything. You're being dramatic. He said it like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. And I felt something snap. Not loud, not visible. Just a clean break in my chest where I'd been holding everything together. I stood up. I said, I know about Rachel. The room went quiet. The game was still playing on the TV, some announcer's voice babbling about a play, and Michael's face went the color of skim milk. Elena, don't, I said. Don't say anything yet. Just listen. He didn't interrupt. He didn't have a choice. I saw her at the hardware store, I said. I heard her laughing on the phone. It was your laugh, Michael. The one you haven't done in years. I know you've been lying to me. I know you told her I let myself go. I know you planted that oak tree and now you're not sure you want it. I know everything. He opened his mouth, closed it. His hands were trembling. I walked to the front door. I didn't have a bag, didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to get out of that house. Before I left, I turned back. Your mother left $347 worth of groceries at the store today, I said. I paid for them. I told the cashier I was covering a stranger's bill. And I showed her the text your mother sent me. So now it's not just me who knows what she thinks of me. It's everyone at that grocery store. It's the manager. It's the cashier. It's the woman behind me in line. He just sat there. Silent. Don't bother looking for me, I said. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. But right now, I need to know if there's any part of me left that I haven't given away. I closed the door and I didn't look back. I drove for 40 minutes without knowing where I was going. I ended up at a diner off the highway, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and a coffee machine that hissed like a dying animal. I ordered eggs I didn't eat and watched the waitress refill my cup 3 times without asking. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Michael. Then Helen. Then Michael again. I turned it face down on the table and let it vibrate against the Formica. I wasn't crying. I'd used that up in the pharmacy parking lot. What I felt now was colder, cleaner, like someone had opened a window in a room that had been sealed for years. I thought about the way Michael's face had gone pale when I said Rachel's name. I thought about how he hadn't denied anything. He just sat there, mute, like a man who'd been caught shoplifting and knew there was no point in arguing. The waitress came back. You okay, honey? I looked up. She was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back in a clip, name tag that said Doris. I'm fine, I said. Just figuring something out. She nodded like she'd heard that before. Take your time. Coffee's on the house. I stayed until the sun went down. I didn't go home. I went to the lawyer's office. Her name was Margaret, and she'd given me her card after I'd called her about the text. The strip mall was dark by the time I got there, but her light was on. I knocked on the glass door and she opened it, still in her suit, reading glasses perched on her nose. Elena, she said. I wasn't expecting you. I need to start the process. She stepped aside. Come in. I sat in the chair across from her desk and watched her close the door. Her office was small, cluttered with files, a single plant drooping in the corner. She sat down and folded her hands. Tell me what happened. I told her about the grocery store. Helen. The announcement. The cashier. The text. Margaret didn't blink. You did that in public, yes. Good. That's evidence. Witnesses. You have the text still on my phone. Don't delete it. She opened a drawer and pulled out a yellow legal pad. What else? Michael, I said. I told him I know about the affair. Her pen stopped. You have proof. I read his messages. Took photos with my phone. She leaned back. Elena, that's a lot to walk in with. I've been holding it for weeks. I couldn't sit on it anymore. She studied me for a long moment. You're not asking for advice. You're telling me you've made a decision. Yes. Then let's talk about what that means. She opened a folder. Joint assets. The house. The business. You've been out of the workforce for 7 years, but that doesn't mean you walk away with nothing. In this state, you're entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage. That includes his business. I don't want his business. You might not have a choice. Division of assets is a formula, not a negotiation. What you want and what you get aren't always the same thing. I watched her write something on the pad. The words were small, precise. He planted an oak tree in the front yard, I said. The year we got married. He told someone it doesn't mean anything to him anymore. Margaret looked up. That's someone, the woman he's been seeing. She set down the pen. Elena, I'm going to say something, and I need you to hear it. You're not going to get closure from him. You're not going to get an apology that makes sense. What you're going to get is a legal proceeding. That's it. If you want to hurt him, that's not my job. My job is to make sure you're not destroyed in the process. I'm not trying to hurt him. Good. Because that's not what this is about. She went through the steps. Filing. Separation. Temporary orders. I listened to the words like they were in a different language. I signed something she handed me. She told me she'd file in the morning. I slept in my car that night. Not because I had nowhere else to go. I could have gone to a hotel, could have called a friend. But I needed to be somewhere that wasn't a place I'd shared with him. The car was mine. I'd bought it myself, before I'd stopped working, before I'd handed over the keys to my whole life. It was a Hyundai, nothing special, but the seat had a worn spot on the left side from where I'd leaned my hip for years. I reclined the driver's seat and stared at the ceiling of the parking garage. My phone buzzed again at 2 in the morning. I picked it up. Michael. 7 missed calls. 6 texts. I opened the most recent one. Where are you? Please come home. I didn't answer. I opened the thread with Helen, scrolled past her grocery lists, her passive-aggressive reminders, past the text she'd sent when my daughter was born, the one that said, I hope she has Michael's nose. Yours is too sharp. I stopped on the beggar text and read it again. You're just a beggar who married my son for his money. Don't call me again. I didn't feel angry. I felt something else, something that took me a minute to name. Relief. She'd finally said it out loud. The thing she'd been implying for years, the thing Michael had never defended me against. She'd just typed it and hit send. And now there was no pretending. No more reading between the lines. It was there, black and white, and everyone at that grocery store had seen me show it to Marcy. I texted Doris the next morning. Not the waitress, my daughter. She was 22, finishing her nursing degree at the state university, and she had her father's stubbornness and none of his meanness. I hadn't told her anything yet. I didn't know how. Can I come see you today? She replied within a minute. Yeah, everything okay, just need to talk. I'm at clinicals until 3. Come to the apartment after. I drove to her place. It was a small studio in a building that smelled like burnt toast and weed, the kind of place I'd hated when she first moved in. Now I looked at it and thought about how much I'd give to live somewhere that didn't have his cologne in the air. She was already there when I knocked. Doris was my daughter's name. We'd named her after my grandmother, and Michael had fought it for a week before giving in. She opened the door in her scrubs, hair pulled back in a messy bun, and I saw her face shift the second she looked at me. Mom. What happened? I stepped inside. The apartment was small, cluttered with textbooks and coffee mugs and a yoga mat rolled up in the corner. I sat on the edge of her bed, and she sat on the floor across from me. Your father, I said. He's been having an affair. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look surprised. She just nodded like I'd told her the grocery store was out of milk. You knew. I didn't know for sure, she said. But I wasn't stupid. He's been off for months. Distracted. He'd call me and then hang up when you walked in the room. I figured it was something. I felt something crack in my chest. Not the snap from before, but something slower, like ice breaking on a river. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to be the one who broke it, she said. That's your marriage, Mom. Not mine. I didn't know what to say to that. She was right. She'd been right to stay out of it. But the fact that she'd seen it, that she'd known before I'd let myself admit it, made me feel like I'd been walking around with a sign on my back. Are you okay? She asked. I don't know, I said. I think I am. I might be. I paid for your grandmother's groceries today and told the whole store she called me a beggar. Doris blinked. You did what? I showed the cashier her text. Then I asked the manager to announce that I'd paid for a stranger's groceries. She ran out without the bags. My daughter started laughing. Not a small laugh, but the kind that came from somewhere deep, the kind I hadn't heard in years. She put her hands over her face and laughed until she was gasping. Mom. That's insane. Your grandmother owes me $347. She's never going to pay you back. I know. I stood up. That's not the point. She stopped laughing. What is the point? I looked around her apartment. The books stacked in corners. The takeout containers from last night. The single photo on the wall, a picture of her and me at her high school graduation, Michael behind the camera because he'd always hated being in photos. I thought about how long it had been since I'd looked at that photo and felt anything but tired. The point is I'm not going back, I said. I'm filing for divorce. I've already talked to a lawyer. Doris stood up. She was taller than me, had been since she was 14. She put a hand on my shoulder. Okay, she said. What do you need? I need to know you're going to be okay. I'm fine. I'm more worried about you. I hugged her. I hadn't hugged her in a long time, not really, not the kind of hug that said I was leaning on her instead of the other way around. She didn't pull back. She just held on. Dad's going to lose his mind, she said into my shoulder. He already has. Did you tell Helen you're leaving? I haven't told anyone. I just left. She pulled back and looked at me. You should tell her. You should tell her to her face. That's the only way she's going to understand. I thought about it. Helen's apartment. The beige trench coat. The cart full of groceries she'd abandoned. I remembered the look on her face when she'd seen me show Marcy the text. Panic. That was the word I'd used. But there'd been something else underneath, something I hadn't named. Shame. The old, learned kind, the one she'd been carrying her whole life, the one she'd been passing down to me like an heirloom. I don't owe her anything, I said. No, Doris agreed. That's exactly my point. I left her apartment and drove to Helen's. I didn't call first. I didn't text. I just showed up at her door and knocked. She opened it a crack. The chain was still on. Through the gap, I could see her face, pale, mascara smudged under her eyes. Elena. Her voice was flat. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. I don't care. I pressed my palm against the door. Open the door or I'll keep knocking until your neighbors call the police. She hesitated. Then she slid the chain and opened the door wide. Her apartment smelled like mothballs and old coffee. The same floral sofa she'd had since Michael was a kid. The same china cabinet with the same set of dishes I'd never seen her use. She stood in the middle of the room with her arms crossed, staring at me like I'd tracked mud across her carpet. What do you want? She said. I took a breath. I'd rehearsed this in the car, but the words came out different now, rougher, less polished. I want you to know I'm leaving your son. I've already started the process. Her face didn't change. Good. Good, you heard me. You've been a drain on him for years. Maybe now he can find someone who actually contributes. I stood there and let the words hit me. They didn't hurt the way they used to. They just bounced off like pebbles on glass. I paid for your groceries, I said. $347. I'm not asking for the money back. I'm telling you I paid for them. And then I told everyone in that store that you called me a beggar. So if you want to act like I'm the one who embarrassed you, go ahead. But everyone who was there knows the truth. Her arms tightened. You had no right, I had every right. You've been treating me like a servant for years. You've been telling me I owe you, and I believed it. I don't anymore. She opened her mouth. Closed it. I'm not telling you this to start a fight. I'm telling you because you're going to hear it from Michael eventually, and I wanted you to hear it from me first. Does Michael know you're doing this? Michael knows I know about Rachel. That's all he knows so far. Helen's face went through something complicated. I watched her process the name, the affair she'd probably known about for months, the son she'd protected and lied for. And I saw it in her eyes, the moment she realized I wasn't the weak link anymore. He's going to be devastated, she said. Good. She blinked. What? I turned toward the door. I'm not going to make this easy for him. I've made it easy for 18 years. That's over. If he wants to figure out why his marriage fell apart, he can start with the woman who raised him. I opened the door and walked out without waiting for her to respond. I heard her say something behind me, but I didn't stop. I got in the car and drove to the nearest coffee shop. I ordered a latte, the kind Michael had been drinking, and I sat in the corner booth and sipped it while I watched the afternoon crowd drift in and out. My phone buzzed. Michael again. I answered. Elena. His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. Where are you? I'm at a coffee shop. I don't know which one. It doesn't matter. Come home. We need to talk. Talk? You had 6 months to talk. You didn't. You just took your phone to the bathroom and texted her while I made your dinner. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. Sorry for what? The affair or the lying? Both. Everything. I set the cup down. That's not going to work, Michael. You don't get to say sorry and have it be over. That's not how this works. What do you want me to say? Nothing. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to listen. He was quiet. I heard him breathing, uneven, like he'd been crying. I'm filing for divorce, I said. I've already talked to a lawyer. I'm not coming back to the house. I'm not coming back to you. Elena, please, I loved you for 18 years. I gave up my career. I gave up my time. I gave up pieces of myself I didn't even know I was giving until they were gone. And you told someone I let myself go. You told her I didn't understand you. You told her you didn't want the tree you planted the year we got married. That was just, I didn't mean, it doesn't matter what you meant. It's what you said. It's who you are. I hung up. I didn't wait for him to finish. I sat in the coffee shop until it started to get dark. I thought about the lawyer. The papers I'd signed. The number on the bank account I'd opened. The one with just my name on it. I thought about Helen's face when I'd said Rachel's name. I thought about Doris laughing. I was scared. Not of losing him. I'd already lost him, and it had been slow enough that I could feel it happening. I was scared of the silence that was coming. The long stretch of days where I wouldn't be someone's wife, wouldn't be someone's daughter-in-law, wouldn't be the person who held the family together. I'd never known what I was without those labels. I didn't know if I was anyone at all. But I knew I was done letting other people decide. I drove back to the house that night. I didn't go inside. I parked across the street and watched the lights. Michael's car was in the driveway. The bedroom window was lit. I imagined him sitting on the edge of the bed, the same bed we'd shared for years, staring at his phone. I imagined him scrolling through Rachel's messages, looking for something I hadn't already seen. I didn't feel sorry for him. I felt something closer to recognition. He was a man who didn't know what he had until it was gone. I was a woman who'd finally realized she was never going to get what she needed from him. I started the car and drove away. I didn't look back. Not once. I found a motel off the highway, the kind with a blinking vacancy sign and a vending machine that only took quarters. The room smelled like bleach and old cigarettes. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floral bedspread and thought about how strange it was to be somewhere that had nothing to do with him. No oak tree outside the window. No coffee mug with a chipped handle. No photos on the wall. I called Margaret in the morning. She answered on the first ring. I need to know how this works, I said. The house. The money. Everything. Come to the office. I'll walk you through it. I showered in the motel bathroom, used the tiny soap they'd left on the sink, and dressed in the same clothes I'd been wearing for 2 days. I didn't care. I drove to the strip mall and sat in the chair across from her desk while she spread papers across the surface. Here's what we know, she said. The house is in both your names. The business is solely in his name, but since it was started during the marriage, it's considered marital property. The bank accounts are joint. You have access to everything. He's going to drain them. Already considered. I filed a temporary restraining order on the accounts yesterday. He can't withdraw more than routine expenses without court approval. I stared at her. You did that without telling me. I did it because you said you wanted to file. That's my job. You don't get to be surprised when I do it. I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger. Something closer to gratitude, but sharper, like I'd been given a tool I didn't know how to use. What happens next? He gets served. Probably today or tomorrow. Then he has 30 days to respond. After that, we go through discovery. Financial records, assets, debts. We'll find out what he's been hiding, if anything. He's been hiding a lot. I know. That's why we do discovery. She slid a piece of paper across the desk. This is a list of what you need to gather. Bank statements, tax returns, credit card bills. Anything that shows income and expenses. I also need the photos you took of his phone messages. I took the paper. The list went on for a full page. I don't have a job, I said. I haven't worked in 7 years. I know. That's going to be part of the equation. Spousal support. It's not automatic, but given the length of the marriage and your time out of the workforce, you have a strong case. I don't want to take his money. Margaret set down her pen. Elena, listen to me. You're not taking his money. You're taking what's yours. You contributed to that marriage. You raised his child. You ran his household so he could build his business. That has value. The law recognizes that value. If you walk away from it, you're not being noble. You're being stupid. I thought about Helen's voice in my head, the one that said I'd been a drain. I thought about Michael's messages, the way he'd told Rachel I didn't contribute. Okay, I said. What do I do first? Get a bank account in your name only. Move half of the joint savings into it. That's your right. Then gather everything on that list and bring it to me. That's it, that's the start. She leaned back. The rest is just paperwork. And patience. I left her office and drove to the bank. The teller was a young man with a pierced eyebrow who didn't ask questions. He opened the account, transferred the money, and handed me a debit card. I put it in my wallet and walked out into the parking lot. The sun was out. I stood there for a minute and felt the warmth on my face and thought about how long it had been since I'd noticed the weather. Michael called at noon. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. His voice was strained, clipped. Elena, I got served. You actually did it. You actually filed. Call me. We need to talk. I deleted the message without saving it. I went to a diner for lunch. Not the same one from before. A different one, closer to the motel, where the waitress had a tattoo of a rose on her forearm and a voice like gravel. I ordered a club sandwich and ate it slowly, savoring the fact that I wasn't rushing home to make something for someone else. The afternoon stretched out in front of me, empty and open. I didn't know what to do with it. I'd spent so many years filling my hours with his needs that I'd forgotten how to just be still. I thought about the grocery store again. The way Helen's face had crumpled when I showed Marcy the text. The way she'd left everything behind. I thought about Marcy's wide eyes and Frank's hesitant announcement. I wondered if they'd told anyone else. I wondered if they'd talked about it after their shifts, standing in the break room, saying, "Did you see that woman? The one who paid for her mother-in-law's groceries and then told everyone she was a beggar." I wondered if they'd laughed. I hoped they'd laughed. I paid for my sandwich and left a $20 tip. The waitress looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I didn't care. I drove to a park I'd never been to before. It was small, with a pond in the middle and benches along the path. I sat on one and watched the ducks paddle in circles. An old man walked past with a dog on a leash. A woman jogged by with earbuds in. I sat there for an hour and did nothing. Just existed. Just breathed. My phone buzzed. Doris. Dad called me. He's freaking out. I know. He wants me to talk to you. He wants me to convince you to come back. Are you going to? No. I told him to call a therapist and leave me out of it. I smiled. It was the first real smile I'd felt in weeks. Thanks, I said. He's going to try something else. He's going to call you again. He's going to say all the right things. I know. Mom, you can't go back. You can't. I'm not going back. I'm just not sure what I'm going forward to yet. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "That's okay. You don't have to know yet." I hung up and watched the ducks for a while longer. The sun was starting to dip, and the pond had turned orange and gold. I thought about the oak tree in the front yard. The one Michael had planted the year we got married. I didn't know if I wanted it either. I didn't know if I wanted anything. But I knew I didn't want him. I went back to the motel and slept through the night for the first time in months. No 3 a.m. wake up to his glowing phone. No silent pings. No small private smile at the screen. Just me and the bleached sheets and the hum of the vending machine down the hall. The next morning, I called Margaret again. I want to go back to the house. I need to get my things. Don't go alone. He could be there. I know. That's why I'm going. She didn't argue. Take someone with you. Your daughter. A friend. Someone who can witness what happens. I called Doris. She said yes before I finished asking. We met at the motel. She drove. I sat in the passenger seat and watched the familiar streets go by. Maplewood Drive. The oak tree. The split level with the peeling paint on the shutters. Michael's car was in the driveway. He was home. Doris parked on the street and turned off the engine. Ready, she said. No. But I'm doing it anyway. We walked up the path together. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Michael was in the living room. He was sitting on the couch, the same spot he'd been in when I'd told him I knew about Rachel. The TV was off. He wasn't wearing a shirt. He looked like he hadn't showered in days. Elena. He stood up. You came back. I came back for my things. Don't do this. We can work this out. I'll end it with her. I'll do anything. Michael, you don't get to do anything. I've already filed. It's done. Filing doesn't mean it's done. You can withdraw it. We can go to counseling. I walked past him into the bedroom. I started opening drawers and pulling out clothes. He followed me, standing in the doorway. I'm not going to counseling with you. I'm not going to work this out. I'm not going to pretend you didn't say what you said to her. What did I say? Tell me what I said. I turned around. You told her I let myself go. You told her I didn't understand you. You told her you didn't want the tree you planted because it reminded you of me. Don't act like you don't remember. He sagged against the doorframe. I was lying. I was trying to impress her. I didn't mean any of it. You meant it enough to type it. I'll delete it. I'll block her. I'll never see her again. Michael, stop. He went quiet. I don't want you to change. I don't want you to fight for me. I just want you to understand that this is over. You made it over. Not me. You. I went back to the closet and started pulling down hangers. Doris appeared in the hallway behind him. She didn't say anything. She just watched. Where are you going to go? He asked. I don't know yet. Is it someone else? I laughed. It came out harsher than I meant it to. No, Michael. It's not someone else. It's me. I'm going to go be me. The person I was before you told me I wasn't enough. You were always enough. No, I wasn't. If I was, you wouldn't have found someone else. You wouldn't have told her I didn't understand you. You wouldn't have sent her a photo of the tree and said you didn't want it anymore. He stood there, mouth open, nothing coming out. Enough is enough, I said. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to stand here and explain my own life to you. You had 18 years to figure it out. You didn't. I zipped the suitcase. Doris stepped forward and took it from me. Mom, she said. Let's go. I walked past Michael. I didn't look at him. I walked out of the bedroom, down the hall, past the kitchen where he'd made pasta, past the living room where he'd watched the game, past the front door where he'd kissed me goodbye every morning for years. I didn't look back. We loaded the suitcase into the car and drove away. Doris didn't ask where we were going. She just drove. Do you want to stay with me? She said. For now. I need to figure out what comes next. You can stay as long as you need. I nodded. I didn't have anything else to say. We drove in silence. I watched the houses go by, the familiar streets, the coffee shop on 3rd Street where Michael had started buying lattes. The hardware store where I'd seen Rachel for the first time. I thought about all the things I'd let go. The coffee changes. The cologne. The phone. I thought about the tiny cracks I'd papered over with patience and hope. I thought about how I'd spent years believing that if I just tried harder, things would go back to the way they were. They never went back. They'd only gotten smaller. And now I was standing in the middle of something new. I didn't know what it was yet. I didn't know if it was going to be better or worse or just different. But I knew I was the one making it. I thought about the text Helen had sent me. The one I'd shown to Marcy. The one I'd used to break myself out of the cage I didn't even know I was in. You're just a beggar who married my son for his money. I wasn't a beggar anymore. I wasn't asking for anything. I was taking. I stayed with Doris for 4 days. Her studio had a pull-out couch that creaked every time I shifted, and the street noise kept me up past midnight. But I didn't mind. I'd spent so long in that split level with its tight silence and his unreadable face that the noise felt like company. I started making calls. Not to Michael. To everyone else. My sister lived 3 states away. I called her first. She answered on the second ring and said, "Elena, it's been 6 months. You never call. What happened?" I told her. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said, "It's about time. He was never good enough for you. You never told me that. I thought you knew." I called my mother. She was in Florida, retired, playing tennis 3 times a week. She picked up and I heard the clink of glasses in the background. "Elena, sweetheart, how are you?" I told her. She went quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I always wondered why you stayed." I didn't have an answer for her. I called the women I used to work with, the ones I'd drifted away from after I stopped working. Most of them had moved on to other companies, other cities. The ones who were still around listened and said things like, "You deserve better," and "He was never the man you thought he was." It was strange to hear them all speak with one voice. They'd known. They'd all known. I called a realtor. I told her I needed to sell the house. She asked if Michael knew. I said not yet. "He should be part of the process," she said. "He doesn't get to be part of anything I do from now on." She paused. "I'll need his signature for the final sale." "I'll get it. I have a lawyer." I called Margaret next. "I need to move forward. Faster. I can file a motion for temporary orders. That'll give you exclusive use of the house while the divorce is pending, but you said you don't want to live there." "I don't." "Then we ask for a sale. He'll have to agree or the court can force it." "How long will that take?" "Months. Maybe longer." I sat on the pull-out couch and stared at the ceiling. The crack in the plaster had been patched badly, and the edges were crusted with old paint. "I can't do months," I said. "I need something now." "Then you come to me with a number. What do you want, and what are you willing to trade?" I didn't answer. I didn't have a number yet. I didn't even know what I wanted. I just knew I wanted out. Completely. Irrevocably. I hung up and walked to the window. Through the blinds, I could see the street below. A man walking a dog. A woman with a stroller. A delivery truck unloading boxes. Everything happening like normal, like the world hadn't stopped and started again. I thought about the grocery store. The packed aisles. The beige trench coat. The cart full of groceries that no one had ever picked up. I wondered if the store had thrown them away or donated them. I wondered if Marcy had told anyone else about the woman who'd paid for a stranger's bill. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my texts. Helen hadn't messaged me since the grocery store. The last message was still the beggar text. I read it again and felt nothing. I closed the thread and opened Michael's. He'd stopped texting. The last message was from 2 days ago, the one I deleted without reading. I opened it now. "I'm sorry. Please call me." I didn't call him. Doris came home from her clinicals that evening. She dropped her bag by the door and looked at me. "You okay?" "Yeah. You look like you're planning something." I smiled. "Maybe I am." She sat across from me on the floor. "What is it?" "I'm going to find Rachel." Her face went carefully blank. "Why?" "Because I need to know what she knows. I need to know how much he told her." "Mom, that's not going to help." "I don't care if it helps. I need to see her. I need to look her in the face." She studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay. How are you going to find her?" "I already did. She works at a real estate agency on Fairview." I looked it up. "You're serious?" I've never been more serious about anything in my life. "Enough is enough," she said, and the way she said it sounded like my own voice coming out of someone else's mouth. "You went after Helen. You went after Dad. Now you want to go after her. What's the endgame here?" "I don't have an endgame. I just need to see her." She let it go. I think she understood. The next morning, I drove to Fairview. The real estate agency was in a new building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a sign that said Premier Properties in gold lettering. I parked across the street and sat in the car for 10 minutes, watching the glass doors. A woman walked out. Tall, dark hair, low ponytail. The same blazer she'd been wearing at the hardware store. She was on her phone, laughing at something. I recognized the laugh. Michael's laugh. The one he hadn't used with me in years. I got out of the car. I walked across the street. I didn't have a plan. I just opened the door and walked inside. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? I'm here to see Rachel. Name. Just tell her it's Elena. The receptionist frowned but picked up the phone. I stood in the lobby with my hands in my pockets and watched the office doors. A few minutes later, a side door opened and Rachel came out. She looked different up close. Her face was thinner than I remembered, her jaw sharper, her eyes older. She was in her mid-30s, maybe younger than I'd first thought. She wore a silk blouse tucked into tailored pants. Her heels clicked on the floor as she approached. Her face was cautious, neutral, the face of someone who'd been in this situation before. Elena, she said. I didn't expect to see you. I'm sure you didn't. Why are you here? I wanted to see you. I wanted to know what you look like when you're not laughing at my husband's jokes. She flinched. Just a fraction, but I saw it. I know you're angry, she said. You have every right to be. Don't tell me what I have the right to feel. I don't need your permission. She held up her hands. Okay, fair enough. What do you want? I looked around the office. The other agents were watching from their desks, pretending not to. Let's go outside, I said. She nodded and led me through a side exit to a small patio with a table and 2 chairs. We sat. She folded her hands and waited. Did you know he was married? I asked. Yes. Did he tell you about me? He told me you didn't understand him. He said you were distant, that you'd stopped caring. He said he felt invisible. I stared at her. And you believed him? I didn't have a reason not to. He seemed genuinely unhappy. He was unhappy because he wasn't getting what he wanted. That's not the same thing as being invisible. I raised his daughter. I took care of his mother. I made sure his life ran smoothly so he could do whatever he wanted, including you. She looked down at her hands. I know you're angry. You keep saying that. Because you look like you want to hit me. I laughed. It came out short and sharp. I don't want to hit you. I don't blame you. You didn't make him cheat. He chose it. He's the one who took vows. He's the one who lied. She looked up. Then why are you here? I leaned back in the chair. I wanted to see if you knew. If you actually knew who you were with. If he'd told you the truth about any of it. He told me enough. Did he tell you he made $40,000 a year when we got married? Did he tell you I used my savings to buy his first set of tools? Did he tell you his mother has been calling me a beggar for years, and he never defended me once? She shook her head. He didn't tell me any of that. Of course he didn't. That doesn't make him look good. He only told you the parts that made you feel sorry for him. She didn't argue. She just sat there, gripping her own hands. Do you love him? I asked. She hesitated. I don't know. I thought I did. But this isn't what I signed up for. What did you sign up for? A man who wasn't already married? I looked at her for a long moment. She was younger than me, trying to be composed. Trying to be brave. But her eyes were glassy and her jaw was tight, and I could see the panic underneath. You should know, I said, I'm leaving him. Not because of you. Because he wasn't the man I thought he was. And I don't think he's the man you thought he was either. She stared at me. Are you telling me to stay with him or leave him? I'm not telling you anything. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. I stood up. She stayed seated. I didn't come here to fight, I said. I came here to see if you were real. You are. I'm sorry you got caught in this. But you knew. You could have walked away. You didn't. I should have. Yeah, you should have. I walked back through the side door and out the front entrance. The receptionist watched me go but didn't say anything. I got in the car and sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel. I hadn't cried. I hadn't yelled. I just said what I needed to say and walked out. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not relief. Not closure. Something closer to the truth. Like I'd finally seen the shape of the thing that had been controlling my life. I drove back to Doris's apartment. She was still at clinicals. I sat on the pull-out couch and stared at the wall. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Elena, the voice was cautious. Female. Young. Yes, this is Rachel. I got your number from Michael's phone. I hope that's okay. I didn't say anything. I wanted to tell you something, she said. I don't expect you to believe me, but I want you to know. He's been lying to me too. He told me he was separated. He told me you'd both agreed to see other people. I didn't know until you showed up at the office. Michael and I were never separated. I know that now. I ended it. I told him I'm done. I didn't know what to say. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. I'm not telling you this because I want you to forgive me, she said. I don't expect that. I just thought you should know. Okay. I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything. She hung up. I held the phone in my hand and looked at the screen for a long time. I thought about Michael. The weight he'd been carrying, the secrets he'd been protecting. All the carefully constructed stories he'd built to keep everyone separate. He'd told Rachel he was separated. He told me he was just trying something new. He told Helen I was a drain. He was always telling someone a different version of the truth. I thought about how much energy it had taken. All that lying. All that hiding. And for what a few months with a woman who'd just called me to say she was done. I almost pitied him. Almost. I put the phone down and went to the kitchen. I opened Doris's refrigerator and found leftover takeout, a half-empty bottle of white wine, and a jar of pickles. I pulled out the wine, poured myself a glass, and drank it standing at the counter. The door opened. Doris walked in, still in her scrubs. Mom, there's a car outside. I think Dad's here. I set down the glass and walked to the window. Through the blinds, I could see Michael's car parked at the curb. He was sitting in the driver's seat, staring at the building. I turned to Doris. Stay here. What are you going to do? I walked out the door. I crossed the sidewalk. I tapped on his window. He rolled it down. Elena. Get out of the car. He got out. He was wearing a jacket, shaved, showered. The cologne was gone. He just smelled like soap. I know you don't want to see me, he said, but I had to come. I had to try. Try what? To explain. To make you understand. I crossed my arms. You did enough explaining when you sent those messages. I know. I screwed up. I know that. Don't say you know. It doesn't matter. He reached out and I stepped back. Please, he said. Just give me a minute. I looked at him. This man I'd loved for 18 years. This man who'd made me coffee, planted a tree, held my hand when our daughter was born. This man who'd lied to my face every day for 6 months. 1 minute, I said. Then you leave. He nodded. He took a breath. I don't deserve you, he said. I know that. I've always known that. And that's why I did what I did. Because I couldn't be what you needed. And instead of telling you, I found someone who didn't know me. Who only saw what I showed her. That's not an excuse. I know it's not. It's not an excuse. It's just the truth. I waited. He didn't say anything else. Is that it? I asked. Yeah. Then you can leave. Elena, you said 1 minute. It's up. He got back in the car. He sat there for a moment with his hands on the steering wheel. Then he drove away. I watched his taillights disappear down the street. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. I walked back inside. Doris was waiting by the door. Okay, I said. Now I'm hungry. A week passed. I started looking for apartments. Not the kind I'd lived in before. No split level, no oak tree, no guest room that never got used. I wanted something small. Something that was mine. I found a 1-bedroom on the 2nd floor of a building near the river. The kitchen had a window that faced east, and the bathroom had a clawfoot tub that needed new fixtures. The landlord was a woman my age named Carol who didn't ask why I was renting alone. She just handed me the keys and said, first and last, utilities included. I moved in on a Tuesday. Doris helped me carry boxes up the stairs. We set up the bed, unfolded the couch, hung the few things I'd taken from the house. It wasn't much. A photo of Doris at graduation. A set of pots that had been a wedding gift. The old books I'd been meaning to read for years. Doris stood in the middle of the living room and looked around. Cozy, she said. Small. Same thing. I laughed. She was right. It was the first time I'd laughed in my own space in years. She left that evening. I stood in the empty kitchen and looked out the east-facing window at the darkening sky. I was alone. Truly alone. Not waiting for someone to come home. Not listening for a car in the driveway. Not checking my phone to see if he'd texted. It was quiet. But it was my quiet. The next morning, Margaret called. Michael's lawyers reached out. He wants to settle. Settle what? Everything. He's not fighting the divorce. He's offering a split of the assets, including the business. He wants to avoid a trial. What's the catch? No catch. He's just trying to move on. I thought about that. The man who'd spent 6 months hiding his phone, constructing elaborate lies, telling Rachel he felt invisible. And now he wanted to move on. I want to talk to him first, I said. Elena, that's not how this works. You have lawyers for a reason. I know. But I need to see him. Face to face. She sighed. You're not going to get what you want from him. I'm not looking for anything. I just want to look at him and know I'm done. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, fine. I'll set it up. But if he tries to talk you out of the settlement, you walk away. I will. We met at a coffee shop near the courthouse. Neutral ground. No oak trees, no bedroom, no history. I got there first. I ordered a latte and sat in a corner booth with my back to the wall. He walked in 10 minutes late. Same jacket. Same haircut. He was wearing the watch I'd given him for our 15th anniversary. He sat across from me. He didn't order anything. Thanks for coming, I said. Thanks for agreeing to see me. I looked at him. Just looked. I'd spent 18 years trying to read his face, and now it was completely open. No masks. No deflection. I want to settle, he said. I don't want to fight. I don't want to drag this out. You already dragged it out for 6 months. You just didn't tell me. He winced. I'm sorry. I'm not going to stop saying it until you believe me. I'm never going to believe you. That's what you did. You took away my ability to believe anything you say. He opened his mouth. Closed it. I'll sign the settlement, I said. I'll take half of the house, half of the savings, and a percentage of the business valuation. That's what the law says I'm entitled to, and I'm not going to pretend I don't deserve it. I wouldn't ask you to. Good. Because I'm not asking. I'm telling. He nodded slowly. Okay. Whatever you want. I leaned forward. That's what you should have said 18 years ago. Whatever you want, Elena. Instead, you just let your mother treat me like a servant and told another woman I was invisible. He looked down at the table. His hands were trembling. She called me, he said. Rachel. She told me you came to see her. She told me what you said. Good. I didn't know she was going to call you after. I didn't ask her to. I don't care. He looked up. I never meant to hurt you this badly. I know that sounds like a lie, but I didn't. I just didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think. You never thought. I made everything so easy for you that you forgot I was even there. I leaned back. The coffee had gone cold. I didn't drink it. You know what the worst part is, I said. It's not the affair. It's not even the lying. It's the way you made me feel like it was my fault. Like I wasn't doing enough, like I wasn't being enough. And I believed you. I believed I was the problem. I spent years trying to fix something I didn't break. Elena, let me finish. He went quiet. I've been married to you for 18 years. I loved you. I really loved you. And I let you treat me like I was nothing because I thought that was what marriage was supposed to be. You give, you take, you compromise. But I was the only one doing any giving. I was the only one compromising. And when I stopped, you didn't even notice until I was gone. I noticed. You noticed because your mother's groceries went unpaid. You noticed because there was no one to make dinner. You noticed because your life got inconvenient. That's not noticing me. That's noticing what I did for you. He was crying. Silent tears running down his face. I didn't feel sorry for him. I'm not trying to punish you, I said. I'm trying to end this. The whole thing. The marriage, the guilt, the feeling like I owe you something. I don't owe you anything. I never did. And I'm not going to pretend I do anymore just to make you feel better. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. What do you want from me? He asked. I want nothing. That's the point. I'm done wanting things from you. I stood up. I left the cold latte on the table. There's nothing else to say, I said. Sign the papers. Let me go. That's the only thing you can give me now. I walked out of the coffee shop and didn't look back. I didn't check to see if he was watching. I didn't care. I walked to my car and sat in the driver's seat. My hands were steady. My breath was even. I thought about the first time I'd met him. The coffee shop where he worked as a barista, the one that had closed years ago. He'd made me a cappuccino with a leaf in the foam, and I'd thought that was the most romantic thing I'd ever seen. I'd thought he was something special. He wasn't special. He was just a man. And I'd given him my whole life because I thought love meant making yourself small. I started the car and drove home. My apartment. My kitchen. My window facing east. The settlement papers came 3 days later. Margaret delivered them in person, which she never did. She sat on my new couch and spread them across the coffee table. Read them carefully, she said. Then sign. I read them. Every page. Every clause. Half the house. Half the savings. A percentage of the business valuation. He'd agreed to everything without a fight. Are you happy? Margaret asked. No, I said. But I'm satisfied. I signed the papers. She left. I sat alone in my apartment and stared at the wall. I thought about the grocery store. The packed aisles. The beige trench coat. The text I'd shown to Marcy. You're just a beggar who married my son for his money. I wasn't a beggar. I'd never been a beggar. I'd just been too scared to see myself the way I actually was. That was the thing about Helen's text. She'd meant it as an insult, but she'd given me a gift. She'd shown me what she really thought, and once I knew, I couldn't unsee it. The way Michael had never defended me. The way I'd let him not defend me. The way I'd told myself I was being the bigger person when I was really just being a doormat. I was done. I picked up my phone and opened Helen's thread. The beggar text was still there. I read it one more time. I typed a response. I'd been carrying it for days. You're right. I married your son. But it wasn't for money. It was because I loved him. I don't anymore. And that's your fault too. I didn't send it. I deleted it. I didn't need to send anything. I didn't need to explain myself. I didn't need the last word. I put the phone down and walked to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water and drank it standing at the counter. The apartment was quiet. No TV. No footsteps. No phone buzzing in another room. I thought about what came next. The weeks ahead. The months. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have a plan. I'd spent so long being someone's wife that I'd forgotten how to be just me. But I had time now. I had time to figure it out. I looked out the east-facing window. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and gold. I thought about the grocery store again. Helen's face. Marcy's eyes. Frank's announcement over the PA. The woman behind me in line with her bag of cat food. She'd walked away with her groceries, and I'd walked away with nothing. No bags. No satisfaction. Just the knowledge that I'd finally done something for myself. Something that wasn't about him or his mother or what anyone expected. I'd paid for a stranger's groceries. And I'd shown everyone that I was the one in control. That was the moment everything had changed. Not the divorce. Not the confrontation. That moment in the checkout aisle when I decided to stop being the person they thought I was. I smiled. It was a small smile, just for me. I didn't know what was coming. But I knew I was going to be the one to meet it. I turned away from the window. I walked to the bedroom and pulled the new sheets I'd bought over the mattress. Tomorrow, I'd call Margaret about the rest. The final hearing. The last signatures. The end of it all. Tonight, I was just going to sleep. I lay down in my own bed, in my own apartment, in my own life. I closed my eyes and listened to the quiet. For the first time in 18 years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something. I woke up the next morning with the sun coming through the east window. It was the first time I could remember waking up without checking my phone. Without wondering if he'd left a message in the night. Without bracing myself for another text from Helen. I made coffee in my new kitchen, using the French press I'd bought the day before. It was a small thing, but it felt like a ritual. Something I'd chosen for myself. I sat at the small table by the window and drank it slowly. The river was visible in the distance, gray and flat, reflecting the morning sky. I watched a barge move up the current, slow and steady, carrying something I couldn't see. I thought about calling Doris. She had clinicals all week, and I didn't want to interrupt her. I texted her instead. Final hearing next week. Everything's settled. She responded an hour later. Are you okay? I think so. I'll let you know when I'm sure. Mom, you're allowed to not be sure. I smiled. She was right. I was allowed to not be sure. The week passed slowly. I didn't see Michael. I didn't hear from Helen. Rachel's number was saved in my phone, but she hadn't called again. I spent my days walking along the river, going to the grocery store, making meals for one. I bought a small plant for the kitchen window, a succulent that didn't need much water. I told myself it was my practice run, learning to keep something alive without anyone else's help. I went to the final hearing on a Thursday. Margaret met me outside the courthouse. She was wearing a navy suit and carrying a leather briefcase. You look nervous, she said. I'm not nervous. I'm just ready for this to be over. It's over. Today's just paperwork. We walked in together. The courtroom was small, the kind they used for uncontested hearings. Michael was already there, sitting at a table with his lawyer. He was wearing a suit I'd never seen before. It didn't fit him well. He stood up when I walked in. I didn't meet his eyes. The judge was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and glasses. She read through the papers, asked if we both agreed to the terms, and signed the order. It took less than 15 minutes. Marriage dissolved, she said. Good luck to you both. I walked out of the courtroom. Margaret was right beside me. That's it? I asked. That's it? You're divorced. I stopped walking. I stood in the middle of the hallway and let the words sink in. Divorced. It sounded final. Clean. Like a door closing. Michael came out behind me. His lawyer was with him, talking in low tones. He looked at me and opened his mouth. Elena, don't, I said. There's nothing left to say. He nodded. He walked away with his lawyer. I watched him go. He was a man in a suit that didn't fit, walking out of a courtroom, walking away from 18 years. He didn't look back. I didn't care. Margaret put a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I know. Call me if you need anything. You're all set. She left. I stayed in the hallway for a minute, just breathing. The building was quiet. The doors were closed. I walked out into the sunlight. The courthouse steps were wide and white, and the sky was blue. I stood at the top and looked at the street below. A taxi drove by. A woman pushed a stroller. A man in a business suit hurried past with a coffee in his hand. Everything was normal. Nothing was normal. I went home. I sat in the apartment and looked out the east window. The river was still gray. The barge was gone. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything. I just sat there and let the silence be what it was. 3 days later, I got a call from Doris. Mom, you need to check your email. Why, just check it. I opened my laptop. There was a message from the woman who ran the grocery store where the announcement had been made. The store manager, Frank, had passed along my contact information after I'd asked him to. She'd been trying to reach me. Dear Elena, the email read. I'm the regional manager for the store. We heard about what you did, paying for a stranger's groceries, and the announcement you requested. It's been a topic of conversation here. A few of our employees were moved by the gesture. Marcy, the cashier, mentioned it to me personally. I wanted to reach out and ask if you'd be willing to share your story with our team. We're hosting a small staff meeting next Tuesday, and we'd be honored if you'd come. No pressure. We just thought it might mean something to people. I stared at the screen. Doris called back. Did you see it? Yeah. Are you going to go? I don't know. Mom, you have to go. That's the beginning of something. What's something? I don't know. But it's something. It's not just about him anymore. I thought about that. Marcy's face when I'd shown her the text. Frank's hesitation. The woman with the cat food. They'd all seen something that day. They'd all been part of it. I called the regional manager that afternoon. I agreed to come. The staff meeting was held in the back room of the grocery store. There were folding chairs, a coffee urn, and a table with pastries. About 20 people sat in a semicircle, including Marcy and Frank. The regional manager introduced herself as Carla, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. I stood in front of them. I didn't have a speech prepared. I just talked. I don't know if any of you remember me, I said. I was here a few weeks ago. I paid for my mother-in-law's groceries and then asked Frank to announce that I'd paid for a stranger's bill. The truth is, I wasn't being kind. I was trying to make a point. I was trying to show everyone that I wasn't the person she thought I was. Marcy was in the front row. She was smiling, just a little. That day changed everything for me, I said. Not because of what I did, but because of what I realized. I had spent years letting people tell me who I was. My mother-in-law. My husband. And that day, I stopped. I just stopped. I paid for the groceries, I showed her text to your cashier, and I walked out. She left everything behind. The groceries are still there, I think. A few people laughed. The point is, I said, I don't have some big lesson to teach you. I don't have it all figured out. But I know that one decision can change the way you see yourself. That's all I wanted to say. Carla stood up. Thank you, Elena. That was more than we could have hoped for. After the meeting, Marcy approached me. I never got to say thank you, she said. For that day. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You're welcome. Are you okay? Like, really okay? I think I am, I said. I'm getting there. She nodded. If you ever need anything, I work here most Saturdays. I'm the one with the nose ring. I laughed. I'll remember that. I left the store and walked to my car. The parking lot was full. The same parking lot where Helen had abandoned her cart. The same store where I'd changed everything. I drove home. I made dinner. I sat by the east window and watched the sunset. I thought about Michael. The divorce. The papers I'd signed. The man I'd spent 18 years with, who'd never been able to see me the way I needed to be seen. I didn't miss him. I missed the idea of him. The man I'd thought he was. The man I'd built my life around. That man didn't exist. I thought about Helen. The text she'd sent. The groceries she'd abandoned. The shame on her face when she'd seen me show it to Marcy. She was just a woman who'd been handed her own cruelty, reflected back at her, and she didn't know what to do with it. I didn't hate her. I just didn't care. I thought about Rachel. The woman who'd been naive enough to believe him. She'd made mistakes, but she'd also called me. She'd ended it. She'd tried to do the right thing, even when it was too late. I didn't hate her either. I thought about the oak tree. The one Michael had planted the year we got married. I didn't know if I wanted it, but I did know it wasn't mine to keep. It was his. He'd planted it. He could decide what to do with it. I was done with trees that weren't mine. I stood up from the window. I walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer where I'd put the divorce papers, the settlement agreement, the deed to the apartment. I took them out. I read them one more time. Then I put them back. I was ready for what came next. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was going to be good or bad. But I knew I was the one who would meet it. I thought about the grocery store again. The packed aisles. The beige trench coat. The text I'd shown Marcy. The announcement. Attention customers. A woman at register 4 has just paid for a stranger's purchases. I was that woman. I still was. Only now, the stranger I'd paid for was myself. I smiled. It was a real smile, not practiced, not for anyone else. Just for me. The night was quiet. I didn't wait for anything to happen. I just lived. The call came at 7 in the evening, 3 weeks after the hearing. I was making pasta in my new kitchen, the garlic and olive oil filling the room with something that almost felt like home. It was Michael. I almost didn't answer. But I had nothing left to be afraid of. Elena. His voice was strained, like he'd been rehearsing. I know I'm not supposed to call. I know you don't want to hear from me. But I need to say something. Please. Just this once. I set down the spoon. What, can I come over just for 10 minutes? I'll leave if you tell me to. I looked around the apartment. My apartment. The one he'd never seen. The one I'd built without him. A 1 hour, I said. Then you're done. Thank you. I gave him the address. He showed up 30 minutes later, still in his work clothes, the same jacket he'd been wearing the night I left. I didn't let him in right away. I stood in the doorway and looked at him. 10 minutes, I said. And you don't touch anything. He nodded. I stepped aside. He walked through the living room slowly, like he was cataloging the furniture. The green couch I'd found at a thrift store. The bookshelf I'd assembled myself. The succulent on the windowsill. You have a plant, he said. Don't be a dick. He flinched. I wasn't. I just meant, it's nice. You never had plants before. I never had a lot of things before. He sat on the edge of the couch without being invited. I stayed standing near the kitchen counter. The timer on the stove beeped. I turned it off and let the pasta sit. Say what you came to say, I told him. He took a breath. I've been going to therapy. Every week. I know it's too late, but I wanted you to know. The therapist, she made me see things. Things I didn't want to see. Like I've been running from myself my whole life. My mother, the way she treated you. I never defended you because I was too scared to stand up to her. I let her treat you like a servant because it was easier than fighting. I didn't say anything. And then Rachel, he continued. I told myself she was different. That she understood me. But she didn't understand me. She just didn't know me yet. Once she did, she left. Enough is enough, I said. You're not going to get a medal for going to therapy. I'm not asking for a medal. I'm trying to tell you I understand. Finally. After everything. I get it now. You don't get it. You don't get what you did. You don't get what it felt like to read those messages and realize the person I'd trusted most in the world had been lying to me for months. You don't get what it felt like to sit in a grocery store and hear your mother call me a beggar and know you'd never once defended me. So don't sit there and tell me you get it. He was quiet. I don't, he said. You're right. I can't get it. But I can say I'm sorry and I can mean it. I looked at him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd given everything to. He looked older now, smaller, like the life he'd built had started to crumble around him. Michael, I said, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen. I don't want to hear you apologize. I don't want to hear that you're changing. I don't want to hear anything that makes me feel responsible for your feelings. I spent 18 years carrying your feelings. I'm done. He looked at his hands. What do you want? I want you to leave. I want you to sign the papers and leave me alone. I already signed. Then leave. He stood up. He walked to the door. His hand was on the knob when he turned back. I loved you, he said. I know you don't believe that. But I did. I just didn't know how to show it. I thought about all the years I'd waited for him to show it. The small gestures I'd clung to. The times I'd told myself he was trying, even when he wasn't. That's the problem, I said. You thought love was something you felt. I thought it was something you did. I did it for 18 years. You didn't do it once. He opened the door. He didn't say anything else. He just walked out. I stood in my apartment and let the silence settle around me. The pasta was cold by the time I remembered it. I ate it standing at the counter, the way I'd eaten so many meals in the weeks since I'd left. The garlic had gone bitter. I didn't care. I thought about his words. I loved you. Maybe he had. Maybe he'd meant it. But love without action was just a word. And I was done with words. The next morning, I went back to the grocery store. Not for the meeting. Not for anyone else. Just for myself. Marcy was working. She saw me and waved. Elena. You're back. I came to buy groceries. The normal kind. She laughed. I'll get you a cart. I walked through the aisles slowly. I picked up a bag of apples, a loaf of bread, the box of pasta I'd already finished. I took my time. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I got to the register. Marcy was waiting. Same as last time, she asked. Not quite. She scanned my items. The total came up. I pulled out my card. I swiped it. I looked at her and smiled. Just me this time. She smiled back. That's the best kind. I walked out of the store with my bags. The sun was out. The parking lot was full. The same parking lot where Helen had abandoned her groceries. I didn't think about her. I didn't think about Michael. I thought about myself. I went home. I put the groceries away. I watered the succulent. I sat by the east window and looked at the river. I was alone. I wasn't lonely. I'd spent so long being with someone and feeling lonely that I'd forgotten what the difference was. I called Doris that evening. Hey, Mom. Everything okay? Everything's fine. I just wanted to tell you something. What I've been thinking about that day at the grocery store. The announcement. The way everyone looked at me. I thought I was doing it for myself, but I think I was doing it for other people too. The ones who've been told they're not enough. The ones who've been made to feel small. Doris didn't say anything. She was waiting. I think I want to do something with that, I said. Not a job. Not a business. Something else. I don't know what it is yet. Mom, you don't have to figure it out tonight. I know. But I wanted you to know I'm thinking about it. She was quiet for a long time. I knew you'd be okay, she said finally. I didn't know how, but I knew. I hung up. I looked out the window. The sun was setting again. The same sun, the same sky, but I felt different. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a husband. I didn't have a mother-in-law who called me a beggar. I had an apartment with a window. I had a plant. I had a daughter who believed in me. And I had myself. The person I'd been before I'd let them tell me who I was. I thought about the grocery store one last time. The packed aisles. The beige trench coat. The text I'd shown to Marcy. You're just a beggar who married my son for his money. I'd shown it to a stranger because I'd needed someone to see what I was carrying. And that stranger had seen it. And then I'd asked Frank to make the announcement, not because I wanted to be kind, but because I wanted the world to know I was done. I was done. I stood up from the window. I walked to the kitchen. I made a cup of tea. I sat at the table and drank it slowly. The apartment was quiet. The river was dark. The succulent was still alive. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew I would meet it. I would meet everything with my own hands, my own feet, my own voice. I finished my tea. I washed the cup. I went to bed. I slept through the night. No dreams. No 3 a.m. wake up. Just the silence and the darkness and the knowledge that I was the one who had made it. I woke up the next morning with the sun coming through the window. The same sun. The same sky. I made coffee. I watered the succulent. I sat by the window and looked at the river. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wait for anyone to call. I just lived.